44% of the women in this room have a gene mutation called MTHFR. 44% of you have this gene mutation. It is a complete inability to process folic acid. If you can't process folic acid and your OBGYN tells you to take a prenatal vitamin with 1400% of the folic acid, guess what happens? You go nuts. And you become depressed.
Let's talk about folic acid and this MTHFR gene mutation. Essentially, the usable form of folate is 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. Folic acid is added to the food supply in multiple prenatal vitamins because it has been demonstrated multiple times to reduce the risk of neural tube defects and a myriad of other things that we will get into. One of the enzymes in this cascade, called the MTHFR enzyme, is often mutated in the general population to differing extents, which differs its activity. However, the prevalence of the most extreme genotype is actually fairly low and depends on the population being studied. Essentially, what this individual is trying to argue is that unmetabolized folic acid, due to a reduction in the activity of this enzyme, could theoretically pose a health risk, because it could interfere with natural folate metabolism, take up many of the receptors and proteins involved in natural folate metabolism, and induce issues due to a reduction in actual folate production and an accumulation in this unmetabolized folic acid. However, currently we have no conclusive evidence that this is actually the case. There's a very, very small amount of research indicating that unmetabolized folic acid could alter the immune system function, and low levels of unmetabolized folic acid actually reduce the risk of certain conditions, whereas extremely high levels of unmetabolized folic acid would increase them, indicating that there is a U-shaped relationship between folic acid intake and the development of a multitude of conditions. Therefore, it probably is not intelligent to go extremely high in folic acid supplementation. However, at normal doses, which are typically recommended to people, folic acid appears to be safe and effective. And when it comes to depression, we do have a specific study looking at folic acid supplementation during pregnancy and the risk of postpartum depression. And they stratified for this specific genotype that has a fairly large reduction in the activity of the MTHFR enzyme. And they found that of all the populations, the population with this specific genotype with a reduction in the MTHFR enzyme activity actually had the largest benefit when it comes to the reduction in postpartum depression due to the supplementation of folic acid, indicating that folic acid or another form of folate is even more important for these individuals. And another study indicated that folic acid supplementation is even more important for individuals with the MTHFR genotypes when it comes to preventing the development of fetal malformations. Very importantly, what I'm not saying is that the supplementation with different forms of folate that may bypass the MTHFR gene mutation may not be effective for individuals with these specific gene mutations, and it may be more effective than folic acid supplementation. However, what I am saying is that folic acid supplementation still appears to be efficacious, and getting in some sort of folate, even if it is folic acid, in individuals with this gene mutation still reduces the risk of fetal malformation and postpartum depression. And currently there is no evidence to indicate that supplementation with folic acid in individuals with this gene mutation actually has negative health consequences. And there certainly is no evidence it has any neurological consequences, such as making people go crazy or increasing the risk of postpartum depression. In fact, as mentioned, folic acid supplementation is even more effective in individuals with a reduced activity of this enzyme. Therefore, getting folate in somehow is extremely important.